Good morning, children. Welcome to today's lecture. And today, according to your timetable, it is History and Civics. And in the chapter that we are studying in History and Civics is the Indian Constitution. We have already completed in the previous three videos, we have already completed more than half of the chapter. Okay. And in those chapters, we have studied about the Constitution. We have studied about the features of Constitution. We have studied about the characteristics of the Constitution. We have studied about the Indian Constitution also. We have studied about the preamble. We have studied about the this. We have studied about the federal system. We have studied about these are the different features of Indian Constitution. We have studied about the parliamentary form of government. Okay, and rest of the this features we have studied. And today we'll be studying the another feature of the Indian Constitution. Okay, and hopefully we will try to complete the entire chapter today. So let me share screen first. Today we'll be studying another feature of the Indian Constitution, that is separation of powers. So please wait a minute. This is separation of powers. So in the federal form of government also and in the parliamentary form of government, the first two features, we have discussed a little bit about separation of powers. What is separation of power? Okay, as in the picture you can see, like there is a tree and the tree is having three branches. One is on one branch it is written executive, on the second branch it is written first is legislative, second is executive, and third is judicial. The three branches of the tree has been shown here. Okay, and see, legislative, executive, and judiciary. So like this we have three branches or three organs of government. Okay, that is the legislative, second is the executive, and third is the judiciary. So let us see what are these. The Indian government is divided into three distinct but interrelated branches: legislative, executive, and judiciary. They have to function within their own spheres demarcated under the Constitution. In other words, the doctrine of separation of power has implicitly recognized by the Indian Constitution. Okay, so we have three branches of government, three organs of government, that is legislative, executive, and judiciary. Okay, see this table here, the government of India, it is divided the legislative, executive, and judiciary. So what is legislative? The legislative comprises of the Parliament of India. Okay, and the parliament comprises of the president plus the two houses. Which are the two houses? Lok Sabha, which is also called the House of People, and Rajya Sabha, which is also called the Council of States. Okay, the legislative, it consists of the parliament, which comprises of the president, the Lok Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha. Okay, and the legislative branch, the function, the work of legislative branch is to make the laws. Okay, the work of legislative branch. So what does legislative do? The legislative branch of the government, it makes the laws, it introduces the law, it frames new laws for the territory of India. Okay, and the laws that are framed by the legislative branch are executed or implemented by another branch of government, that is the executive branch of government. Okay, so what is executive branch of government? The executive branch of government comprises of the executive members, that is the president of India is a member of executive also. Okay, we have the cabinet executives, departments and agency. We have the prime minister as the head of the executive branch of the government. Okay, we have cabinet ministers, we have council of ministers. They are the part of the executive branch of government. And in the executive branch, the major part of the the major role is played by the bureaucrats. The bureaucrats are the, you can say, at the lowest level, at the initial level, and to the second highest level. The bureaucrats are only responsible. The bureaucrats only implements the laws made by the legislature. Bureaucrats, we have district magistrates, all the DMs, all the SDMs, all the chief secretary, whatever the position on which they are, all the IAS officers rank, the people who are at the post of IAS officer, at the rank of IAS officer, Indian Administrative Service. You are seeing the word na, Indian Administrative Service. Administrative means administration. Okay, so this branch, the bureaucrats, they are called the bureaucrats. The bureaucrats play the most important role in implementing the laws framed by the legislature. Okay, and the executive branch of the government, it comprised of the bureaucrats at the lowest level and to the second highest level. After that, it also comprises of the cabinet ministers, the council of ministers, and the prime minister as the head of the executive branch of government. So what is the function of legislative? Legislative makes the laws, executive implements the laws, and what is judiciary? Judiciary is the branch of government which interprets the laws, which checks whether the laws that are followed, that are made by the legislature, are not against the constitution, or it checks the laws made by the legislature. It checks the powers of the executives also, because since the executive is the branch of government that is responsible for implementing the laws in the territory of India. Okay, so the executive has also got the maximum powers, all the powers to decide. The main powers is vested in the hands of executive only. So the executive should not misuse that power. The executive should not misuse the law framed by the legislature. These all things are checked by the judiciary. Okay, whether the laws that are made by the legislature are followed by are executed properly by the executive or not, this is also checked by the judiciary. Whether the laws made by the legislature is not against the constitution, this is also checked by the judiciary. Okay, so it also interprets the laws. Okay, and the judiciary comprises of the Supreme Court, which consists of a Chief Justice and 30 other judges. It comprises of the Supreme Court, the High Court of the High Courts of different states, and the lower courts. And these form the judiciary, that is the third organ of the government. So the legislative makes the laws, executive implements the laws, and judiciary interprets the laws and checks whether the laws that are made are not against the constitution, or the law which are made by the legislature are followed by the executives properly or not. Okay, and if suppose it finds that the legislative has made the laws, has made a law which is against the constitution, so the judiciary has the power to declare that law as ultra vires or null and void. Null and void or ultra vires means against the law or against the constitution. Okay, so these are the three organs of government: legislative, executive, and judiciary. Okay, why these separation of powers has been made? Okay, these separation of powers has only been made to keep a check on each other, to keep a check and balance on each other. If the power would have been given to a single person, okay, if the power would have been given to a single person, that it might be possible, the maximum chance it could be that that person who would have been having all the powers, he could misuse that power. Okay, so in order to prevent the misuse of power, the power has been divided into three branches: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. And all the three branches of government keeps a checks and balance on each other. It is not that the judiciary will only keep a check on that legislative and executive. The legislative also keeps a checks on executive and judiciary. The executive also keeps a check and balance on legislature and judiciary. So in this way, all the three organs are interlinked also. All the three organs have different powers, but all the three organs are interlinked also, as it keeps checks and balance on each other. So this is only the separation of power, okay, which is an important feature of the Indian Constitution. Next, we'll be discussing about universal adult franchise. Many times we have discussed this. In all the three video lectures we have discussed. In the previous class also we have studied, and many times we have studied about the universal adult franchise. So let us study once more what is universal adult franchise. Here in the picture you can see, you can get an idea of the universal adult franchise, the right to vote. Okay, let us see. One of the most remarkable feature of the Indian democracy is that from the very beginning of the Constitution of India, gave the citizens of the country universal adult franchise. It is the most important feature of Indian democracy also. It is most important feature of the Indian Constitution also, that the Indian Constitution has given the citizens of his country the power of the universal adult franchise. Okay, the right of universal adult franchise. See, this has enabled all the citizens of voting age, irrespective of caste, religion, wealth, or gender. In many other democratic countries, including UK and the USA, some sections of the population, such as the poor and the women, have got voting rights after long periods of struggle. Okay, this is the beauty of the Indian Constitution, that after the Indian independence, from the first election, everybody has got equal right to vote. Each and every citizen, irrespective of caste, color, creed, religion, gender, okay, they all have got the right to vote. Okay, and this is called universal adult franchise. In some of the countries like UK and USA, the poor section of society, like women and the poor people, they have got these rights after lots of struggle. But here in our country, we have these rights from the very starting, after the Indian independence only. Universal adult franchise is important for breaking the clutches of hegemony of majority groups in the society. Why universal adult franchise is important? Universal adult franchise is important to break the clutches of the hegemony of the majority groups in the society. Before independence, we had a majority group of the society. The rich people were the dominating people. The people of higher caste, they were dominating people. The men section of the Indian society, they were dominating. Okay, so they only had the maximum rights, and the poor people and the other poor section of the society, the lower section of the society, they were denied of the basic rights, which included this also, right to vote. Okay, so universal adult franchise has played a very important role in breaking that clutches of hegemony, in breaking that the position of upward, higher position, lower position, in breaking that situation of higher and lower position of the society, and it has created a sense of equality among each and every section of the society. Second point, universal adult franchise respects the fact that every adult is a responsible citizen, irrespective of his or her social, economic background or level of education. This is what I have told in the previous point also, that universal adult franchise respects the fact that every adult is a responsible citizen. Every adult, in our country who is above age of 18, they all are responsible citizens, and they all are equal in the law, irrespective of his or her social or economic background or level of education. Next, it is a prime duty of every citizen to vote as and when he becomes entitled to vote. So everybody who has attained the age of voting in our constitution, it is prescribed as 18 years. In our country, who has attained the age of 18 years, everybody, irrespective of his social, economic, or level of education, keeping these backgrounds aside, everybody has got, irrespective of these backgrounds, everybody has got equal rights to vote. Okay, so this is another important feature of the Indian Constitution, that is universal adult franchise. Next, another feature of very important feature of Indian Constitution is the fundamental rights. Very important feature of the Indian Constitution. This is the fundamental rights. The fundamental rights are the rights which is given to each and every citizens of the country, irrespective of socio-economic background, and these are the rights which are enjoyed by the citizens of India, and no one can take back these rights. No government can take these rights except in the case of emergencies. Okay, in the case of emergency, the fundamental rights are taken, but except it is not an emergency case, we have the fundamental rights and nobody can snatch those rights. And if these rights are snatched, this is our fundamental right. This is a right to constitute. This is one of the fundamental rights, that if any of the fundamental rights is violated, that person can move to the court. Okay, that his or her fundamental rights has been infringed. The fundamental rights are given in Part 3 of the Constitution. The Part 3 of the Constitution comprises of fundamental rights, which contains articles. The fundamental rights includes, it's given in the Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, containing articles 13 to 51. Okay, Article 13 to 51 talks about fundamental rights, and this is given in Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. Next, let us see the section. Let us see the fundamental rights. The section on fundamental rights has been referred to as the conscience of the Indian Constitution. Okay, it means, what you know what is conscious in Hindi means? That's Atma, your inner soul. Okay, so the fundamental rights has been referred to as the conscience of the Indian Constitution, the soul of the Indian Constitution, on which the Indian, this is the one of the most important features of Indian Constitution, a very important features of Indian Constitution, which is giving right to the citizens of India, which has given rights to each and every citizen of India. Okay, now colonial rule has created a certain suspicion of the state in the mind of the nationalists, and they wanted to ensure that a set of written rights would guard against the misuse of state power in independent India. Okay, so colonial rule means British rule. Before India was not independent, we had a colonial rule. The Britishers were ruling us, so that was called colonial rule. Okay, so that time the citizens of India had no fundamental rights. No rights were given to the common people. Okay, and since they were very badly tortured, okay, their rights were not taken into consideration. The British government was not taking any consideration for their rights, that they as human beings, they have some rights, but they were neglected from those rights. All the Indians before the independence were neglected with those rights. Okay, so the nationalists, the freedom fighters, it created a suspicion in their mind that if the people of the citizens are not given these rights, so this would create a very bad situation in the country, and it would, see here, they wanted to ensure that a set of written right would guard against the misuse of state power in independent India. And they wanted that when India gets independence, the citizens of the country should have some rights, the fundamental rights, so that the government of India, the government which is ruling the country, it should not misuse its power. Okay, and the nationalists, the freedom fighters, and after that the constitution makers, they wanted to give some powers, some rights to the common citizens of India also. Okay, and from there we have got our fundamental rights. Fundamental rights, therefore, see here, fundamental rights, therefore, protect citizens against the arbitrary and absolute exercise of power by the state. So what does fundamental rights do? Fundamental rights protects us. It protects the citizens against the arbitrary and absolute exercise of power by the state. It protects us from the misuse of power by the state. The state or the country or the government, it sometimes misuses its power. Okay, so to protect the citizens of India from that misuse of power, we have been given these fundamental rights. Okay, and so the constitution thus guarantees the rights of individual against the state as well as against other individuals. So what are the fundamental rights? The fundamental rights are the rights given to the citizens of the country against the states and against the other individuals also. So these are the rights that we can use against the state and against the other individuals. If the basic rights of the humans, of the citizens, are infringed or violated either by the state or government or either by the other individual. Okay, so we have these rights to live peacefully in our country, in our country. Okay, so what are these fundamental rights? In the Indian Constitution, we have 6 fundamental rights in total. Number 1, right to equality, which includes Article 14 to 18. Number 2, right against exploitation, which includes Article 23 and 24. Okay. See, first is right to equality, which includes Article 14 to 18. Second is right to freedom of speech and right to freedom of expression, or we can only say right to freedom, which includes Article 19 to 22. Third is right against exploitation, which includes Article 23 and 24. Fourth is right to freedom of religion, which includes Article 25 to 28. Next is cultural and educational rights, which includes Article 29 and 30. Next is right to constitutional remedies, which includes Article 32. Okay, so let us discuss in detail about these articles. First is right to equality, which includes Article 14 to 18. Second is right to freedom, which includes Article 19 to 22. Third is our right against exploitation, which includes Article 23 and 24. Fourth includes right to freedom of religion, which includes Article 25 to 28. And fifth is culture and educational rights, which includes Article 29 and 30. And sixth is right to constitutional remedies, which include Article 32. Okay. So let us start. First is right to equality. Okay. Right to equality, articles 14 to 18. All persons are equal before the law. This means that all persons shall be equally protected by the laws of the country. It also states that no citizen can be discriminated against on the basis of religion, caste, color, or other social backgrounds. Every person has access to all public places, including playgrounds, hotels, shops, etc. The state cannot discriminate against anyone in matters of employment, but there are exceptions in this that you will read about later in this book. Yes, the practice of untouchability has also been abolished. Okay. So what is right to equality? We have studied in the previous slide about right to equality. Okay. This includes Article 14 to 18 that all person irrespective of caste, color, creed, religion, gender, and any other social background, irrespective of other economic background or any other background, all people are equal before law. All persons who are living in this country are equal before law, which means that all persons who are the citizens of India, okay, they are equally protected by the laws of the country. Each and every law is equal for everyone. Okay, this doesn't mean that if a person is of different caste, he will have a different law. If a person is of different genders, so two different genders will have a different law. Everyone who is a citizen of India is equal before law. These persons are equally protected by the laws of the country. It also states that no citizens can be discriminated against on the basis of the other social, economic, or any other backgrounds. Okay, there can be no discrimination on the basis of social or economic background. Every citizen first right to equality, it says that everyone is equal before law. Second, no one who is living in this country can be discriminated whether on religion or whether of caste, whether of creed, whether of color, whether of gender. No one can be discriminated on any other background. Okay, all are equal in the eyes of law. Third, it says that every person has access to all public places. Okay. First, it said that everybody is equal before law. Second, no one can be discriminated. Okay. Third is every person has access to all public places, which includes playground, hotels, shops, etc. Everyone who is living in this country has access to all the public places without any discrimination. Okay. Fourth, the state cannot discriminate against anyone in matters of employment. Another part, it is saying that the state or the country or the government or the central government, it cannot discriminate anybody. It cannot discriminate anyone. It cannot discriminate any person on any background, and the state cannot discriminate against anyone in matters of employment, and everyone has got equal right to get employment or of any case. Everyone, every citizen, the state also, the government also, the country also cannot discriminate against anyone. Okay, it cannot discriminate against anyone, and the state also, the government also has to treat every citizen of the country equal. Okay, but there are some exceptions also which are given in the Indian Constitution. Okay, like here you are saying the matters of employment, everybody has got equal chance of getting each and every employment, of getting each and every job, but still there are some discrimination. To uplift the lower section of the society, we have reservation. So the reservation is an exception, okay, to these rights, because there are some places reserved, there are some position in which reservation is there, like Indian Administrative Service or any other government service. We have a reservation of 50%. Okay, so 50% seats are reserved for the lower section of the society, our brothers and sisters of lower section of society. Okay, to uplift the section of society, these reservations are there, and on this is an exception in which the state discriminates between the course of employment or on the other backgrounds. Okay, but Why it is discriminating? Just to uplift that section of the society, because that section has been humiliated since long time. Okay, to uplift that section of the society, the government is protecting them by giving them some reservation, and this is an exception. Okay, and you have also read that the practice of untouchability has been abolished. Okay, next, number 2 is right to freedom. Okay, this includes, what is right to freedom includes? This includes right to freedom of speech and expression. Everybody in this country has the freedom to say anything. Everybody has the freedom to say his thoughts. Everybody has freedom to say his views, or to express his thoughts, or to express his views. Okay, and there also there are some exceptions, like he cannot go against the country. Okay, like if he says against something against the country, or if he says something against the government, then it is a punishable offense. But leaving that condition, a person has got equal rights. A person, everybody has got the right to express. Everybody has got the freedom to express his or her views to others. Okay, they also have the right to form association. The people who are living in this country, they also can form association. They also have right to move freely and reside in any part of country. Okay, all have the right to move to any part of country, to visit any part of country, or to reside in any part of country. Okay, and they also have the right to practice any profession. They have the right to practice any occupation. They have the right to do any business. Every citizen of the country has been given these freedom. They have been given this freedom in the fundamental right, which include article 19 to 22. Okay, and the children of from the age of 6 to 14, they have the freedom to get education. Okay, they have the freedom to get education. A free and compulsory education is necessary for the children aged from 16 to 14. This means that children who are from age of 16 to 14, they have the right to get free and compulsory education. Okay, third is right against exploitation. The constitution prohibits human trafficking, forced labor, and employment of children under 14 years of age. Okay, this right against exploitation, it provides the people from getting exploited. Okay, like in the earlier time, we had a slavery system. We had slaves. Okay, in which these slaves, they were not given any money, but they were forced to work. They were forced to do different work. Okay, the laborers, they were not getting equal wages. They were not getting proper wages. They were not getting proper salaries. Okay, and they were living a life of they were living a very bad life. They were living a life of misery. Okay, and to protect their rights, to protect their exploitation, this fundamental right has been included in the Indian Constitution. That is right against exploitation, which this right prohibits human trafficking. It prohibits forced labor, that laborers cannot be forced to do any work, and it prohibits employment of children under 14 years of age. Okay, still it is prevalent in many parts of society, like children who are under 14 years of age, they cannot work. Okay, they don't the children who are above under the age of 14 years, they don't have they cannot be forced to work. Okay, nobody can force them to work. Okay, and the children, especially the rights of children, are not exploited. This is being checked in this fundamental rights. So right against exploitation, what does it do? It prohibits human trafficking, it prohibits forced labor and employment of children under 14 years of age. Next, right to freedom of religion. Next, we have got a very important right, that is freedom of religion. Religion freedom is provided to all citizens. Every person has the right to practice, profess, and propagate the religion of their choice. Yes, anyone of this country, every person of this country who is living in this country, they have the right to practice any religion. They have the right to profess any religion, and they have the right to propagate any religion. This is given in right to freedom of religion. Okay, so people who are a citizen of the country, they have the right to practice any religion, they have the right to adopt any religion, they have the right to practice, profess any religion, they have the right to propagate any religion of their choice. Okay. Fifth fundamental right is cultural and educational right. The Constitution states that all minorities, religious or linguistic, can set up their own educational institution in order to preserve and develop their own culture. Okay, the minor section of the society, okay, whether on the basis whether they are whether on the basis whether of religious, whether of language, they have the right to protect their culture. Okay, and they have the right to set up their own educational institution. Okay, and in order to, why they have the right to set up their own educational institution in order to preserve and develop their own culture. Okay, like we have different examples, we have different organizations, we have different institutions which protects the culture, which educates their culture, which develops the culture, okay, of different section of the society. Okay, so the citizen of the country, they have the right to protect their culture, they have the right to form an educational institution to protect their culture and to develop their culture. This is given in cultural and educational rights. Next important fundamental right is right to constitutional remedies. What does this say? This allows citizens to move. This allows the citizens to move to the court if they believe that any of their fundamental rights have been violated by the state. Okay, it this is the right given to each and every citizen of the country to move to apply to these fundamental rights, give the citizens of the country the constitutional remedies. The remedies, it gives the citizens of the country some remedies which are mentioned in the constitution. Like if any of the fundamental rights or any of the rights of the citizens are being violated, those citizens, those people have the right to move to the court and um, get their fundamental rights preserved. Okay, say it is given this allows citizens to move to the court if they believe that their fundamental rights have been violated by the state. If they find that their fundamental rights are being infringed or violated by the state, or it is being violated by any organization or by any other people, so they have the right to move to the court. Okay, so this is right to constitutional remedies, the sixth and the last fundamental right. We have completed the fundamental rights, which was the most important feature, which you can say the soul of the Indian Constitution, and it is the most important feature of the Indian Constitution. Next, we have fundamental duties. Okay, with the fundamental rights, the citizens of the country have some duties to perform for the state. We are getting some rights, so in return we also have to perform certain duties. That is given in fundamental duties, which is given in article 51A of the Indian Constitution. There are certain fundamental duties. What are fundamental duties? Fundamental duties are defined as the moral obligation of all citizens to help promote a spirit of patriotism and to uphold the unity of India. So what are fundamental rights? These are moral obligations, okay, which are for all the citizens. These are the moral obligations for all the citizens, which helps to promote spirit of patriotism. It helps to develop a spirit of patriotism, okay, and to uphold the unity of India. Okay, in order to protect, in order to provide the unity of India, these fundamental duties are given in the Indian Constitution, which should be followed by the each and every citizen of the country. These duties are set in Part 4A of the Indian Constitution. These fundamental duties are given in Part 4A of the Indian Constitution, and article, if I say, it is the Article 51A. Okay, Article 51A gives some duties to the gives some fundamental duties to the citizens of the country, and the citizens of the country are expected to perform those duties. Okay, they are held by the Supreme Court to be obligatory for all citizens. Okay, and these fundamental duties are held by the Supreme Court that it is obligatory for all the citizens of the country. Okay, now what are fundamental duties? See, the fundamental duties, we have said we have discussed what is fundamental. It is a moral obligation which is given to all the citizens of the country to help to promote the spirit of patriotism and to uphold the unity of India. Okay, which is given in Part 4A of the Indian Constitution, Article 51A. Okay, and it is made obligatory by the Supreme Court of India. Now, history. The fundamental duties were included in the Indian Constitution by the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. Okay, in the 42nd Amendment Act, these fundamental duties were included in the Constitution of India. Okay, next point, it incorporated the fundamental duties by inserting a new Article 51A below Article 51, which belongs to Part 4A. Below Article 51, one more article has been inserted below the Article 51A by the name Article 51A. Below the Article 51, one new article was inserted in the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976, which gave fundamental duties to the Indian Constitution, which added fundamental duties to the Indian Constitution. The recommendation was passed in 1976 and came into effect on 3rd January 1947. This recommendation was passed by the Parliament in the year 1976, and these fundamental duties came into effect from 3rd January 1977. Okay, remember, 1977 these duty came into effect. Originally, these fundamental duties were 10 in number. Okay, but they were increased to 11 by the 86th Amendment Act of 2002. Okay, from 42nd Amendment Act, there were 10 fundamental duties in Article 51A. Okay, but in the 86th Amendment Act 2002, one more fundamental duty was added to the Indian Constitution, or Part 4 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, these duties were meant to bring our Constitution in line with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Constitution of Japan, China, and USSR. So these duties were meant to bring our Constitution. Okay, it was meant to bring our Constitution in line with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Constitution of Japan, China, and USSR, means United States of Soviet Russia. Okay, and it was adopted based on the recommendation of the Swaran Singh Committee. So a committee was formed to recommend about the fundamental duties, and it was adopted based on the recommendation of the Swaran Singh Committee. The name of the committee was Swaran Singh Committee. Now, what are those duties? The fundamental duties of every citizen in India according to the Constitution are: number 1, to abide by the Constitution and respects its ideal and institution, the national flag and the national anthem. All the citizens of India are required to abide by the Constitution. Okay, all the citizens of India are requested to follow the Constitution and to respect its ideals and institution. And whatever are the institutions of the Indian Constitution, like the government is an institution of the Constitution. Okay, whatever institution the Constitution is having, all the citizens of the country must respect those institutions, and all the citizens of the country must respect the national flag. That means the Indian tricolor. All the citizens have to respect the national flag and the national anthem also. All the citizens have to respect the national anthem also. Next point, to cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. All the citizens of the country are expected to cherish, okay, are expected to cherish and follow the noble ideals, okay, and they are expected to cherish and follow the noble ideals inspired which inspired our national struggle for freedom. They are expected to follow the ideas of the national struggle for freedom. Okay, next point, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India. All the citizens of the country are expected to uphold and protect the sovereignty of India, to uphold and protect the unity of India, and to uphold and protect the integrity of India. Number 4, all the citizens are expected to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. Okay, the citizens of the country are expected to defend our country also and render national service and to do national service if they are called to do so. Okay, if the situation arises in which they have to defend the country and they have to give their service for the nation, they have to do that and they should do that. Okay, number 5, to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religion, linguistic, and regional or sectional diversities, to renounce practice derogatory to the dignity of women. All the citizens must promote the harmony and spirit of common brotherhood. Okay, so citizens are required to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all people of Indian, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional or sectional diversities. So all the citizens are expected to live friendly, to have friendly relations with among each other, but irrespective of the religious or the linguistic or any other regional or sectional diversities. Of they all are expected to, irrespective of the irrespective of the differences, all the citizens are expected to live friendly, to live like, to have a sense of brotherhood among each other. Okay, and they should renounce practicing derogatory to the dignity of women, and they should also respect the dignity of women also. Okay, number 6, they have to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. Okay, and the citizens should value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. They should respect our culture. They should preserve the culture of India. Okay, they should the citizens of India should value and preserve the rich heritage of the culture that we are having in our society. Okay, number 7, to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lake, rivers, and wildlife, and to have compassion of living creatures. The citizens of India must protect and improve the natural environment. They should also protect and should also improve the natural environment, which includes forests, lakes, rivers, and wildlife. The citizens should protect this and they should improve these natural resources because these are very important for any country. Okay, and India has pride on its natural resources, that we have a very rich natural resources. So every citizen of India are expected, or every citizen of India must protect and improve these natural environment. Okay, and the wildlife also. Okay, and they must have compassion for living creatures also. Number 8, all the citizens of the country have to develop a scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform. No need to explain anything. This is such an important point, such an easy and important point. Okay. Number 9, to safeguard public property and to abjure violence. All the citizens must treat the public property as their own property, and all should respect those public property, and all should safeguard those public property, and to and to abjure violence also. Okay, number 10, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individuals and collective activity so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. So all the citizens must strive towards excellence of all spheres of individual, okay, or they should um, strive towards excellence, and they should say that they are, and they should see that if they are progressing, the entire section, the each and every section of the society should also progress with them, and collectively and collective activities so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavors and achievements. So they should contribute themselves to the nation building. Okay. And last, number 11, which was added after the 86th Amendment Act, which says that who is a parent or guardian to provide opportunities for education to his child, or as the case may be, a ward between the age of 6 to 14 years. Okay. And the parents and the guardians must provide compulsory education to their children between the age of 6 to 14 years. Okay, this we have already discussed in the fundamental rights also. So these are 11 fundamental duties that should be followed, that must be followed by each and every citizen of the country. Okay, next is the last part of this chapter, that is the directive principles of state policy. Okay, let us see here. We'll complete it very quickly. Okay, the directive principles of state policy are the guidelines to the central and state governments of India to be kept in mind while framing laws and policies. These provisions contained in Part 4 of the Constitution of India are not enforceable by any court, but the principles laid down therein are considered fundamental in the governance of the country, making a duty of the state to apply this principle in making laws to establish a just society in the country. Okay, so the directive principles of state policy, they are included in the Constitution. They are included in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, and these are the guidelines which are given to the central government, and they are the guidelines which are given to the state government also. Okay, which should be kept in mind by the government to frame while framing laws and policies. Okay, so DPSP or directive principles of state policy, they are the guidelines which are given to the central government and the state government. Okay, which should be kept in mind while framing laws and policies. Okay, and they are contained in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution, and they are, remember, they are not enforceable by any court of law. Okay, it is, they are just a guideline which should be followed by the governments, whether it is the central government, whether it is the state government, while framing laws and policies for the country. Okay, but the principles laid down therein are considered fundamental in the governance of the country, making it the duty of the state to apply this principle in making laws to establish a just society in the country. So keeping the welfare of the people in mind, because nowadays the welfare of the common citizens are taken into consideration. Okay, so though they are the guideline for the government, but it also acts as the compulsory fundamental work for the government. Okay, it to apply these principles to establish a just and fair and good society in the country. And because everybody knows, if they will not do these things, so next time they will not be elected to that position. So in another way, these fundamental duties, though they are the guidelines, but they act as a fundamental duty for the government also, a kind of fundamental duty for the government also, that should be followed by the government for improving the life of the common citizens, for improving the life of the people of the country. Okay, so what are the DPSP? They are the guidelines to the central government and the state government, which should be kept in mind while framing laws and policies. Okay, and these are included in Part 4 of the Constitution of India, which are not enforceable by any court of law. Okay, but these principles are laid down therein and are considered fundamental in the governance of the country. Okay, these are very fundamental things which are considered very important in the governance of the country. Okay, and making it the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws and to establish a just society in the country. Okay, next. So these are some important things which we have already discussed before. Sovereign, socialist, these are the important guidelines which should be kept in mind by the government. That sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. Sovereign means that the state is free to follow internal and external policies. Sovereign means that the highest authority. That state is free from externally. The state is free externally also. The state is free internally also. The state is free enough. The state is big enough, free enough to make its own laws and frame its own policies. Okay, and secular means the state does not has its own religion, and all the religions in this country are respected. Okay, socialist, it means that the state it means that there is no concentration of power or money in the country, like the concentration of power and money are equally distributed among each and every section of the society. Okay, this democratic, it means that the ruler who is elected as the government, the government who is elected by the is a government of representation. It means rule by elected representatives of the people of India. Okay, the people of India, they cast their vote and they elect a representative which forms the parliament, and they only administers the country, or they run the country and they form the government. Okay, democratic means democratic we have done. And last is republic. It means there is no room for hereditary ruler or monarch. Okay, it means that the head of the country is not an hereditary ruler, or it is not a monarch. We have the highest person of the country, the head of the country, is an elected person who is elected for a fixed term, and after the fixed term, the highest ruler or the head of the country can be changed also, or it is changed also. He can be re-elected, but he is changed. Okay, after every 5 years. In our country, president is at the highest authority. He is the head of the country, and he is the elected for a fixed term of 5 years, and after 5 years again re-election happens and any other person is elected. Okay, so the chapter is complete, the entire chapter is complete. And now if you have not understood anything, so you can ask to me on WhatsApp, and after every video I say, after watching this video, you have to attempt the online test which is given in the form of multiple choice questions, that has to be attempted in the school app only. And after attempting the school app and after attempting the multiple choice questions, you have to attempt the worksheet. You have to solve the worksheet in the rough copy and send the photo of the worksheet in the class WhatsApp group. From next week, we'll be starting history. Okay, the first chapter of history. And before starting history, we'll be doing the copy work of this chapter. After completing the copy work, we'll be starting the first chapter of history. Okay, so all know that this is Corona time. All are requested to stay safe, stay healthy, and don't go out or expected. All are made, the school requests all of you not to go out during lockdown, and all must support the lockdown. All should take care of yourself. All must take care of your family members also. Okay, so let us meet in the next lecture. By the time, bye.